Hey YouTube, welcome back to the third part of this tutorial. And in the second part we learned how to make the raw material that we're going to work with, how to process the can. And in this part we're going to put our template on. Nothing fancy, it's just a grid to let us see where we need to make the cuts. We're basically aiming to produce these, there we go. We're aiming to produce these profiles at this initial stage, as I said, to make the bull guard for our hopper. And let's get started. So we have our sheet metal, it's clean, make sure to clean it up. We're going to start first of all by just cutting out everything that we don't need in this template. There we go. Also this side here. So you want to leave just about 3 millimeters from the edge, just so that the paper you will still have the outer line of your template. And you can basically see that it's a grid and it has 10 dual columns which will form one side of the shape and the other side. And the middle line is where we're going to make the fold, and that each one of these two columns will produce an L profile. So the glue that I'm using, it's like children's glue, it's childproof glue. It comes in a stick. You can find it basically at any supermarket. It's like a stick. And the reason why I use this glue is because it's water-based, and that means that it will hold our paper to the steel firmly enough so that we can do all the work. But once we want to remove it, we're just gonna soak this in a little bit of water and it will come off, and this glue will not leave any residue on the metal that we need to sand off or scrape off or whatever. So we apply the glue to our piece of paper. You want to make sure to get every part of it. Just get it nice and soaked into the paper. Try to keep your workspace clean so that you don't have any dust on it, or like restovers, not restovers, but like material that is lying around that can stick to it, and then it will form bumps on your template. So we have it covered with glue. I'm just gonna place it on here. Just a little bit from the edge. Make sure it's nice and straight. There we go. Okay, so we're going to put this back here. And I'm going to take a piece of flat wood, just a floor panel. I'm going to place it on top, and I'm going to take the vise and place the vise on top, and we're going to leave it for the night, and it's going to cure, and tomorrow morning we can actually start cutting these parts. Okay, so we're back, and we're going to check out our sheet here, and we can see that the paper has dried and it's all nice now, and we can continue working with it. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to cut it out from the rest of the material here, and just before I'm going to do that, since I'm going through this whole project and I'm cutting out really a lot of stuff that we need to talk about and I'm not covering, but we're gonna learn it slowly. So basically this piece here, you can see this grid, very basic. We're gonna turn it into this shape, and I made this nice little sketch here. It's not really accurate, but it gives us a sense of what we're doing. And it's gonna be a frame, so you can see it's just gonna be a frame out of, everything is out of an L profile, and we have the first one, and the second one, the third one, and the fourth one, and they're gonna make our rectangle, and in the middle we will have 5 or 6 bars to make the bull guard, and this is how it will look from the side. So if you were to look at it from the side and just cut it in the middle, then you would see this type of shape, and it just rests in the hopper. So this is what we're going to make, and you will come up with your own designs. It's not really difficult, just use your imagination. Can't really make a video about that, but okay, so let's start. As I said, I'm going to start first of all by cutting this the material that we actually need to work with, and I'm going to do that simply by following the outer line. We learned how to cut already, so you're not going to see the whole process here. Just we're going to get it started. And we take our sheet and we slightly apply a bit of pressure to it, and we have a nice cut, and we have separated this part. We can always use it for creating other parts later. So now we're going to just remove all the edges here and everything that is not actually part of the material that we need to use. I do have here an extra grid, so I'm going to remove it as well. So, we've cut out all the corners of our sheet, and now we're just left with the grid itself that we're going to use. I had an extra column, so you can see I just removed it, and I have all the material here. These sort of things, these you can just discard, but these plates are still good and you can use them for other parts, so we're just going to put them aside. Now, before we're going to divide it into its separate components here, we need to remember that we're going to fold each one of these parts. So we need to first, we want to create a scratch line in the middle so that our fold will come out nice and even. And we do that, we're going to create this fault line. It's the weakest point in the middle, so it will always want to bend there, and that will ensure us that we have nice fold. It's much more easier to do it when you still have this whole piece together. So you want to do that first, and then you're going to actually start separating each part from the body here. So just keep myself on track and not get confused too much. I had here a marker, there we go. And I'm just going to mark all the lines that I'm actually just only want to scratch. I know already that it takes me about 5-6 passes to make a whole cut. So the scratches, I'm just going to pass through them 2-3 times, that's it, just to create a weak point in the middle. We don't want to pass all the way through. So I'm just going to make a little point here on each one of the center lines so that I don't get confused in which lines I need to scratch and which lines I need to cut. There we go. Okay, so we mark those lines, and now we're going to just scratch them real quick. So we just put our ruler on it, You want to try to keep it on line so that you will get straight shapes. And I'm just going to pass it 3 times, and I'm going to move on to the next line. Okay, so I separated, I didn't separate, I just marked the center lines of each of the profile. You can see that on the other side you don't really see any marks. That means that the blade did not go all the way through. And now I'm going to start actually separating each of these pieces. So again, same method. This time I'm not going to do the dotted lines that I marked. I'm just going to do a clean cut of every 2 columns. Same way, just put your ruler on, and this time you aim to make a cut all the way through. There we go. And then you can take the piece and you gently, with your fingers, you work it a little bit. Here I needed to make another pass with the knife that would have made it a bit more easier. As the knife gets duller, then you'll notice that you need to make more and more passes. So, but it's doing a fine job. So you see, I separated the first piece from this board, and nice and flexible. It's just a sheet, and you can see the 2 columns in it. And I'm going to separate all the rest of the 9 pieces, and then we're going to fold them and see how we produce the L profile itself. So I'm just going to get to it. Okay, so we're back, and we've got all our 10 pieces here. We can see we have all the 10 pieces here, just flat pieces of metal. And at this point, in this stage, if the paper template has come off or anything like that, it's not really important anymore. We already cut it out. This is going to be the shape. We scratched it, so we know where everything is going to be. But if you still have the paper on, that's fine, because we're going to remove it a bit later. So let's see how we can shape these into our L profile. We take our vise. It's not really a high quality vise, it's the cheapest one that I found, and the faces of the vise, they're not really 100% aligned, so you will find it more difficult to make smaller pieces of L profile or any other profile if you just choose to cut it out first and then bend it. So you can make any size of profile if it's like smaller than these ones by creating this shape, bending it first, and then you cut off what you don't need from the sides, and then you have a smaller size profile. But again, that is something that better equipment and better tools will always get you more accuracy. Here, for example, you can also see that for backings, I'm using just these 2 pieces of wood. They have a straight edge to them, so they will do just fine. And I use them mainly because when I'm going to press this piece in the vise, I don't want to get the teeth marks on it, and I don't want to crush the material. So what I will do is I take my my piece of sheet metal, and I take these 2 braces, and I will align, first of all, I'm going to align the front side like this. I'm going to align it with the mark that we created, the middle, the center scratch, and then I'm going to put the back side on like that. Oops. I tend to cut these backings to the size of the profiles that I'm making, and then I just write a measurement on it and I save them when I want to create some more. You want to make sure that your scratch line is a bit above the backing, and you can just align them by watching the sides here. And we're going to take this a bit to the top, and there we go, we have aligned it. So we're going to put it in our vise. There we go. Close the vise firmly and just double check, see that you're still on the line, see that the backing is on the same level with the front one. And what you do next is you just take a piece of another flat surface, can be wood, can be metal, whatever you choose. And what you do is you're going to put it on the back. So if we're going to look at it like this, we're going to place this at the back. We want it flush on the metal and also on the backing. And we're not going to do a push motion. We don't want to push it forward. We're going to do a sort of hinge-like motion. So we're going to apply all the pressure on this point, not on this point at the top, on this, so that we have most of the pressure on the fault line that we have created. And then we're going to get a nice clean bend. So I'm going to put it like that, and you're going to see that I'm making a motion just like a sort of door. There we go. You only need to do this once and then press on it a little bit. There we go. Once you did this part, because I'm using wood backings, I can never get it to a fully 90 degrees. So I'm going to take it out of the wood backings. And you can see that we already have our shape, and it has folded nicely all along the seam. You can even straighten it out with your finger and then create a perfect 90 degrees. But you can also just put it in the vise and close on it. You don't need to close on it too hard. You don't want to leave the marks on it. And then you take the small hammer and just follow the seam, not the seam line, the scratch line, and you get a nice L profile. We still have the paper on it. We're going to remove the paper in the next step when we're prepping this for soldering, but you can see we created a profile. It's much more rigid than this part, which is not a profile yet. So we're going to create 10 of these, and I'm going to be back soon. And we're back. We have our 10 pieces ready here. You can see nice 10 pieces of L profile. At this point, we're pretty much done with the fabrication of our parts. We so far learned how to process the can and how to extract the material that we can work with. And we also learned how to create a template, how to cut it, how to prepare it, how to make these profiles. You pretty much got the idea of just bending, so you can make as many bends as you like. And the next step would be to just clean them, remove this paper from the template that we made, and tin them, and then join them together, which we're going to do in the next episode, next part, not episode. Right now we're just going to test this design a bit. So as I said, it's going to be something looking like this. So we know the rough idea. They are all the same size, the same length. So we want to keep it simple. We're going to take 2 of these and we're going to set them like that. These will be our 2 verticals, let's call them. There we go. And then we're going to take 2 more pieces and we're going to create the frame for it. We're not joining it now, we're just testing our design and our measurements and to see that everything falls into place. Since they are all the same length, we don't really need to cut them or make any sort of adjustments in them. So you can see that I started with 2 pieces on one side, and on top of them I laid 2 more pieces. That will make sure that we get an equal, balanced shape. So for example, you don't want to, start like this. You don't want to put a shape on it, a profile, and then another profile, and then the other side on top of this one, because it will create a sort of twist and then it won't be straight. So we want to keep everything straight and nice. We put 2 on the sides and we just make a nice square. And since we've put these 2 horizontal ones, we're going to lay the rest of the pieces in the exact same way, only upside down, so they form these sort of pointy parts. And we're just going to lay them in there. They're all going to fit, they're all the same size. We're just looking now how we're going to finish it, and I can already see that we're not going to use 5 pieces, we're going to use 4 pieces. So we're going to have 2 pieces left over, which is fine. You will always find use for them when you go on and create other parts and other elements of the model. So you can see I've created this, and it's a nice square. We're going to square it all out, and even if we take a ruler and we're just going to make a measurement, and we see that we have 15 from one side and we also have 15 on the other side, so that tells us that we have an equal square, and everything fits nicely into place. If I would need to make any changes in the length of my profile, the way I would do it is that I would mark the place where I need to cut it. If I need to cut it straight, or if I need to cut it like in an angle to make I don't know how you call it, an angle. And I will use my small scissors, and I will just cut, for example, this part here, and then I would turn it around and I would cut this part here, and then I would just jiggle it a little bit, and we have cut our piece. And maybe you need to sand a bit of the ends, but when you're doing that, most likely that you won't be able to get a straight, a really straight line here. So, but if you just pass it through like sandpaper, you can get it pretty straight, and that always works for our models. So, okay, we covered in this episode everything from cutting out our templates and actually producing the profiles, and you can see that we have a shape ready and it's ready for process, for joining. In the next episode, I'm gonna clean it up, I'm gonna tin it, we're gonna join it together, and that pretty much will bring this whole first tutorial of this basic introduction that I'm making to model making out of steel cans, and that would be it. And then I'm gonna follow it also with some more advanced tutorials, making circles, making more mechanisms and things like that. So thanks for watching. If you like my videos, then please subscribe, and if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, then leave them in the comments area, and I'm gonna see you in the 4th part. So thanks for watching so far.